Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating narrative coming to us straight from the village of Chandanpur. Now, on the surface, you might think this is just a simple story about a local food vendor. But honestly, if we look a little closer, it's actually a masterclass in business ethics, customer loyalty, and the very real, very heavy cost of cutting corners. We're going to break down exactly how a thriving business can just collapse overnight due to terrible management and how true skill and resilience can literally build an empire from scratch. All right, let's dive right into this.
It's kind of the ultimate business question, isn't it? I mean, what actually happens when a greedy owner looks at a spreadsheet, decides his absolute best talent is just too expensive, and lets them go? In our story today, we meet Raghuveer. He's the owner of this famously successful mutton rice dhaba, a local roadside restaurant. His business is absolutely booming, but here's the catch. The success isn't really his. It belongs entirely to his head cook, Keshav. So what happens when greed completely blinds management to the actual source of their success?
Section 1. Honesty versus greed. Because every good business case study has to start with understanding the mindsets of the key players. Just picture the stark contrast in business philosophies we have going on here. On one side, we have Keshav. He is the operational backbone of this whole place. The guy works tirelessly from 4 a.m. all the way to 11 p.m. He prioritizes quality above everything else, and he genuinely cares about the customers leaving full and happy. To him, the product is king. But then, on the other side, we have Raghuveer, the owner. He views labor purely as an expense, just a number to be minimized. And then, enter Chagin, this lazy opportunist who actually convinces Raghuveer that he can run the whole kitchen for half the price. His pitch? He claims that taste comes from cheap spices, not from hard work. It's a classic and, frankly, dangerous miscalculation of value. And this brings us right to the emotional core of our narrative. Keshav, the relentlessly loyal employee, simply asks for his fair, previously agreed-upon wages because he desperately needs to buy medicine for his sick mother. Raghuveer's response? This incredibly harsh dismissal. He literally says, "I am not running a charity shop, quietly pick up your things and get out of here." He fires the exact man who's keeping his business alive, with zero empathy. And as you'll see, this isn't just a massive moral failure, it's a catastrophic business error. Moving right along to Section 2. Keshav's new beginning. So, Keshav is out on the street. No job, a sick mother, mounting bills. Let's see how he handles this. The amazing thing is, Keshav doesn't just wallow in pity. He realizes that sure, Raghuveer took his job, but he absolutely couldn't take his skill. And what follows is essentially a step-by-step masterclass in resilience. First off, he gathers his very small savings and manages to take out a small loan from a friend. Next, he builds a clean, modest wooden cart. He knows he doesn't need a huge brick-and-mortar restaurant to start over. Third, he commits to using only the absolute freshest ingredients for a brand new product, chicken rolls. And finally, through sheer, undeniable quality, he wins back the village. The how here is absolutely crucial. Keshav essentially executed a brilliant market pivot. He noticed a glaring gap in the market. The local youth and the daily wage workers really needed quick, hot, portable meals. And by cooking right out in the open, in front of the customers, he guaranteed transparency and hygiene, which is something the old dhaba always struggled with behind its closed kitchen doors. He's out there using fresh, juicy chicken and crispy parathas. The result? Instant, massive success. We're talking huge crowds, from college students to local farmers. Literally overnight, he built an entirely new brand founded entirely on trust and quality. But what exactly is happening across the street during all of this? That brings us to Section 3, the heavy cost of adulteration. Well, unsurprisingly, without Keshav's magic touch, Raghuveer's dhaba starts bleeding its loyal customers. And you know how it goes. Less foot traffic means a lot of unsold inventory. Now, a smart business owner would take the loss on the chin and reassess the strategy. But Raghuveer and his new cheap hire, Chagin, they do the exact opposite. To save just a few pennies, Chagin actually starts serving 2 to 3 day old stale mutton. They actively decided to sacrifice their core product for short-term savings.
And this next part brilliantly illustrates how quickly those bad operational decisions snowball into an absolute nightmare. Let's walk through the timeline of what we'll call the Zamindar incident. Day 1, the mutton goes unsold. Fast forward to day 3, the village's strict, powerful landlord, Zamindar Vikram Singh, orders food for some very special guests arriving from the city. Now, instead of just cooking a fresh batch, Chagan takes that 3-day-old rotten meat, boils it with extreme amounts of red chili and garam masala an hour later just to mask the awful smell, and sends it out. 2 hours later, the Zamandar's esteemed city guests are doubled over with severe food poisoning.
You know, you just can't outspice rotten business practices. The local doctor examines the guests and instantly confirms the illness is due to severely stale food. And the fallout from this is instantaneous and brutal. Zamindar Vikram Singh literally marches down to the dhaba in a rage, publicly humiliating Raghuvir. He threatens to have him banished and enforces a total, village-wide boycott. Since word of mouth is quite literally everything in a tight-knit community like this single event causes the absolute total collapse of Raghuvir's once famous establishment. But desperation often breeds malice. Section 4. The Midnight Conspiracy. Raghuvir and Chagan are staring down an empty restaurant while Keshav has lines wrapping around the block.
So, instead of fixing their own broken product, the villains of our story decide the only way they can survive is to literally destroy the competition. It really makes you ask, is honest, hard work enough to protect you from deliberate, malicious sabotage? Are we about to see Keshav's business shut down forever?
Take a look at the cowardly nature of this attack. At midnight, under the cover of total darkness while the village sleeps, Chagan sneaks over to Keshav's closed-up cart. He's carrying this container of foul, spoiled cooking oil, and he pours it directly into Keshav's pristine, fresh oil can. It's a highly targeted strike aimed squarely at Keshav's greatest competitive advantages, his quality and his hygiene. But they fail to account for one huge, completely unpredictable variable. Enter Dinu Kaka. He's an elderly villager who happens to suffer from insomnia. He was just sitting quietly in the dark square, getting some fresh air, acting as this silent witness. He observes Chagan's entire crime from start to finish. And interestingly, he doesn't intervene right away. He just waits, knowing full well that the truth needs to be spoken at exactly the right moment. The very next morning, the sun comes up, Keshav arrives with his usual smile, and he fires up his stove. But the second that fresh chicken hits the tampered oil, a terrible, nauseating stench just fills the entire square. And like clockwork, Raghuvir suddenly appears, playing the role of the deeply concerned citizen. He violently incites the crowd, completely projecting his own crimes onto Keshav. He actually accuses Keshav of feeding the village rotten food to save money. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. But the crowd's anger, that's very real. An angry mob steps forward, fully prepared to smash Keshav's livelihood to pieces. Just as everything looks completely lost, the narrative shifts. Section 5. The Victory of Truth. We've reached the climax of our explainer. Sirens wail. The local police daroga, the inspector, arrives just in the nick of time to halt the violence. And honestly, watch the incredible use of logical deduction right here. The daroga refuses to give in to the mob mentality. He inspects the oil can himself and notices something really unusual. The oil at the top is completely fine, but the layer down at the bottom is spoiled and foul. And as he rightly points out, oil just doesn't spoil like that naturally. It's a dead giveaway, a clear physical sign of outside tampering. So, with the seed of doubt officially planted, the timing is finally perfect. Dinu Kaka steps forward from the murmuring crowd. Carrying the undeniable authority of a respected village elder, he publicly testifies. He lays out exactly what he saw, Chagan sneaking around at midnight, pouring the foul oil from a smaller container straight into Keshav's can. In a single instant, the entire narrative is flipped upside down. Now, a witness statement is incredibly powerful, sure, but physical evidence? That seals the deal. The daroga immediately orders a raid on Raghuvir's dhaba right across the street. And guess what they find hiding in the kitchen? The exact same spoiled oil alongside the completely empty container Chagan used to commit the sabotage. Raghuvir's entire web of lies unravels right then and there. The resolution we get here is just so satisfying and highly instructive for anyone in business. Raghuvir and Chagan are arrested and marched off to jail, facing serious charges for adulteration and conspiracy. Their greed literally cost them their freedom. The villagers, realizing how easily they were manipulated, offer their very sincere apologies to Keshav. And true to his exceptional character, Keshav forgives them. He cleans out his cart, gets some fresh oil, and resumes his business with the exact same enthusiasm he had on day one.
Because of his unyielding commitment to quality and that incredible resilience, Keshav's chicken roll cart doesn't just survive, it becomes famous across all the neighboring villages.
Which really leaves us with a powerful final takeaway. Keshav lost absolutely everything in an instant, but he knew that his skills, his integrity, and his work ethic were assets that no one could ever fire him from. When faced with a totally unfair setback, he didn't lower his standards. He built something better. So I'll leave you with this thought. Like Keshav, have you ever trusted your own skills to make a fresh start in the face of adversity? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.